like she's in rough shape. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I had put Christmas lights on my wreath, battery operated. So the first thing I'm going to do is remove these. And clearly I put them on like a Tasmanian devil, so this might not be as easy as it should be to undo. But whenever you're taking down like your lights from your windows, you know, like the little candle lights, we always have to take the batteries out or else it's gonna erode anyways. So step one is going to be to take these out and untangle them and take the batteries out. And I just did the same thing with all my outside lights too. I wound them all up in a ball, and I'm going to totally regret it next year. But we're going to do this part right. So I am going to go through and take off all these lights. I used 2 sets. I think I got these at Michael's. And they're battery operated. I recommend them. I recommend putting them on in a more thoughtful manner than what I did. But all right, so we've got one off. Now we're gonna go for the second set of lights. Let's try and find the ends. We're getting these all off so that we can take the batteries out of the battery pack so we can use this again next year. I think these are like $10 or $15 a string. Could be wrong, but they're expensive enough that you want to get more than one season out of them. Go. It's the beauty of doing things without planning them ahead of time. Gives you some real insight into how people operate. Few pieces hanging on here. All right, now we have our battery operated lights off, and we'll take those out. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a hot blow dryer, and I'm just going to get off any dust or dirt that maybe has kind of like fallen on here from the season. Now, I wouldn't recommend using something super hot because especially when you're talking about winter greenery, it's plastic, so it will melt. So we're just going to do kind of like a light dusting over it. And whenever I'm doing my winter designs, they pretty much always include a lot of zip ties. So even though this wreath has gone up and down on my door, because every time I need to take a photo, I have to remove it, everything is still held on here, nice and snug. So that's great. So now that we've done the blow dryer trick, we're going to use the steamer, which you can steam your clothes or you can steam your bows and floral materials. So I'm going to turn this. I'm just going to go through, I'm just going to steam everything lightly. Again, when you're talking about plastic materials, things can very easily melt. So you want to be a little bit thoughtful about just, you know, making sure it stays moving. And this bow is a D. Stevens bow, and it was gorgeous. And look at it now. So we're going to fix this girl up. Okay, we're going to give her a good steam. All around. It's just like how you, when you steam your clothes, like everything's a little bit fresher after doing it. So this is kind of bringing her bringing her back to life a bit. All right, and I want to be really thorough with this. You do want to watch your fingers just because it's obviously hot. See, I've got some like tattered ends. And I know that when I go to put my wreath on next year, I'm going to be mad at myself if I don't take care of this before putting it away. As I keep saying, wreaths are an investment, so you want to take good care of them. And a big part of taking good care of them is making sure that you store them properly and that you care for them properly. Okay? So we've steamed our bow, and the ends definitely are a mess. So I'm going to take my scissors, and we're just going to give this a nice fresh trim, like so, on each of the tails. Sad to take any length off, but if it doesn't look good, there's no point in keeping it on. And these look bratty, so they've got to get trimmed. Okay. This is my eat, drink, and be merry ribbon. Okay. Then the next thing I'm going to do, and when I ship wreaths, I do this too, is I'm going to take tissue paper and I'm going to stuff each of the bows. So the beauty of this is when you have a nice wired bow, like D. Stevens is one of the best ribbon makers there is. So their ribbons, you know, it's not cheap. So you want to take really good care of it and get the most out of it. So you're going to go through and just loosely wad up your tissue paper and put it in your bow. Loose. 1, 2, 3. And already this wreath is like coming back to life a bit. So the last thing that I would do, I'm going to have to do it outside, is I use this Krylon UV protectant. And what this does is it prevents sun damage. So even if it's the winter or you have, you know, why can't I think of the words? A covered entry. Wow, that was a lot harder than it needed to be. So even if you have a covered entry, or you feel like your front door doesn't get a lot of light, or you're using your wreath indoors and you don't feel like there's a lot of light. Oh, my sister-in-law's on here. Hi, Letty. It's really still important to keep using this product because you'll get years and years out of your wreaths as opposed to like a season. So when I go outside, I'm going to spray this for about 30-45 seconds, hit everything, hit the fabric. Greenery seems to be the first thing to go on a wreath. It usually has kind of like a bluish tinge to it after a while. So I always hit greenery extra hard. And then when it's time to store it, I'm going to take one of these. This is a 30-gallon recycling bag, clear bag. And I'm just going to bag it up and tie my wreath nice and tight. And then based on like the storage I have, I usually just put it up on a nail on like I have an unfinished part of my basement or in your garage. So those are my tips on how to keep your wreaths looking good season after season.